Welcome to everybody today, and thank you so much for joining us. This is day 4 of Awareness Week. We have had an incredible response to our week. We had over 1,200 join and sign up for our events this week. So thank you so much for the support. It's been overwhelming for the team, and we're absolutely delighted to see you all here today. Thank you so much for our fantastic sponsors, Promise Gluten Free. Obviously, with their support, it allows us to get fantastic speakers to support our audience. So people like Tom Coleman can come and join us, and obviously yesterday. So it's absolutely brilliant. And with Promise Gluten Free today, we have 2 hampers to give away. And Jennifer, who's in the background there, will choose 2 winners at random. I also just wanted to make a quick reference to our app, our Minding Me gluten-free food list app, and hopefully you all received emails about accessing the app yesterday. We are, again, incredibly excited about this. It's just going to make, I think, the life of celiacs and those on a gluten-free diet so much easier. Anybody who is having trouble accessing the app, if they could please email celiacsociety@gmail.com. That's celiacsociety@gmail.com. And obviously failing that, info@celiac.ie will always get to the right person. So today we have a fantastic speaker. We have Tom Coleman joining us today, who has incredible experience around sleep. And he's been doing this and educating people for the past 10 years. Not only does he do talks like this and talks to corporates, he also deals with a lot of sports people and really supports all of us, I think, and hopefully he's going to enlighten us all about the benefits and the superpower of sleep. So Tom, welcome to you today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here, and I hope you all enjoy the sleep talk. I hope you all stay awake for the sleep talk. It's a win-win for me either way. Yeah, I've got a slide deck which I'd like to share with you all. Please do ask questions at the end if that's possible. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat function, because I know maybe you forget. I tend to cover quite a lot in the sleep talk. So someone said to me once, listen faster. So without further ado, thank you, Andrea, and thank you, Jennifer, for all your help, and Jill and everyone for your support. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. If there's any issue at any time with my sound or screen, please do let me know. Okay, so here we go. Importance of sleep, the superpower of sleep. So yeah, I've reminded you all to go mute, and thanking you as well. So that's great. So I just give you a brief background. Andrea did a lovely talk about me there. I sound fantastic. I'm a health scientist. That's my background, health science and physiology. So I'm passionate about health. I'm a health advocate. I have worked, I suppose my interest in sleep, it all began about 10 years ago when I was working with teams and athletes, and I was doing a bit of work in nutrition, and I became kind of obsessed with, well, what has the biggest impact on the human's ability to recover? And as it turned out, it was sleep. So I then started working with a US company in analyzing people's sleep patterns and fatigue levels at a kind of high level, and that was, fascinating. And then I suppose I was dragged into the corporate space about 5 years ago. And since that, I've spoken and worked with a lot of shift workers. I've spoken at 9 out of the top 10 pharmaceuticals in the world, and I still get to work with some high-level athletes at the moment. I'm also a father, which gave me some new insights as well, because my son was heading up a sleep deprivation project for some time, but we've managed to get control of that. I was walking around the bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning telling him, listen, I'm a sleep expert, and he laughing away at me. So I've got some varying insights. And then a couple of years ago, I was involved in the research on sleep in corporate Ireland. So that gave me new insights. So I hope that you enjoyed the sleep talk today. We're going to cover a lot of information. Because people, so many different things can influence our sleep. It could be technology, it could be stress, it could be children, it could be medical, so many different areas, food. And for you guys, that and I always speak about, in all of my talks, I speak about nutrition because they dovetail in. For me, as a health scientist, I see systems and I see it as the one. I don't see it as very separate things, you know. I talk about the mechanics of sleep. I will talk about what a good sleep practice or good sleep hygiene looks like. I talk about dealing with the demands of COVID. I talk about work-life balance, because if these things are out of sync or out of control, then it's going to really influence our sleep. I give you some tips and strategies around all of these things, and practical tools as well. And then we leave time for questions at the end, and I have got time at the end for questions. But firstly, to reframe the importance of sleep for people. We should be sleeping about 36% of our lives. That's more time dedicated to one activity in human physiology than any other. So that alone should tell us, wow, this is important. A circadian biologist said recently that sleep is the master conductor of health and disease. That's quite a statement as well. Harvard recognized that, it's one of the pillars of health: sleep, nutrition, and exercise. If I stop you from eating and stop you from exercising or stop you from sleeping, what are you going to die from first? Well, sleep. So it should really, all of these things tell us, wow, this is important. So I should really start to look at it and examine it and how I can improve it. Within the framework of health, we talk about health, we look at the holistic model. We look at all the different things that influence our health. And I describe health to people as in a series of decisions we make. Every single decision you make will influence your health, whether you are listening or paying attention or not. Your body is and your brain is. And I understand genetics play an important role. I've spoken to epigenetic scientists about this. How much is genetic and how much is lifestyle choice? Well, less than 10% is genetics, which is, again, great news. That puts the ball in our court. Of course, if we have very poor habits, it's going to switch on our genes and then we have negative outcomes. Community and social networks, massively important as well. I think we all know that now in the last year. Another example I give you of something that, a choice we've made that has influenced our health. Anyone here married or in a relationship? Does that influence your health? Stop laughing and answer the question. Yes, indeed it does. Your physical health, your financial health, your emotional health, your mental health. I could go on. Again, we don't really think about it, but all of these decisions, and it's never really, very rarely it's one decision. It's the culmination of all these things together that give us our health outcomes. So my take-home message for you people on health is, it's in our hands. It's in our hands. We don't have to get all of these decisions right every day. We have to get a majority on most days and stay alive. That's the thing here. So, and all of the demands are different. Our health is personal. So, it's up to you to make a call on all of those decisions. But it's kind of empowering to think that it is in our hands. I want to just firstly, because it's like the elephant in the room, just look at COVID very briefly, or sort of talk about how, and I delve a little bit into how COVID has influenced our sleep. We have done incredibly well, people. We've adapted very well to change. I have 3 webinars today. I speak to hundreds or probably thousands of people every week, and I get feedback on stuff like that. And in my experience, we have coped exceptionally well with this, and we're starting to see the light now. So we have done very well, and we have been very responsive. But just to give you some kind of insights or some little things that you can maintain, is we need to maintain independent thinking. We have so much information coming at us in regard to COVID on the media. It's easy to find stuff online. We can be frightened. It's a threat to our sense of security and well-being and our loved ones. So just be mindful about that. And turn outward means speaking to people, speaking to your friends, speaking to people about your concerns and things like that. Communication is really, really important, and to remain calm. And then the decisions that we make in our lives, to know that we can always change those, that they're kind of flexible and pliable. We don't have to be very rigid about these things. Nothing is forever. So I just wanted to give you that kind of a little bit of insight into COVID. Okay, so I want to delve into sleep. Let's talk about sleep and circadian rhythm. What does that mean? We have an internalized circadian rhythm. And what does circadian mean? Well, circa means around about, and dia means a day. So we have a rhythm of around about a day. We know in life we have monthly cycles and annual cycles and seasonal cycles. So this is a daily cycle which controls many things in our physiology, our sleep-wake patterns. Now, I'll give you an example of your circadian rhythm. So your digestive system, very appropriately, works at its best at 12 o'clock in the day and works at its worst at 12 o'clock at night. And there are reasons for that, in terms of breaking down food. But all of our different organs and systems have different times of the day to function. So your blood pressure spikes at 6 a.m. to get you up and moving. And this is your circadian rhythm. And every single thing you do from waking to sleeping will influence your circadian rhythm. So that's kind of amazing to think. This internalized rhythm should match the external world. So we are diurnal creatures. We're not nocturnal. Nocturnal meaning active at night, diurnal meaning active during daylight hours. So there are appropriate times or better times maybe to eat, to relax. We all know we get dips in our energy at different times. So this is again it's all your circadian rhythm. And maybe exercise. There is an optimum. There are different times when it's probably conducive to exercise as well. I want to teach you mechanism of sleep, because instead of me saying, now you should go to bed at 9 o'clock, you may have a life that's different to that. And I want to teach you mechanism. So how does it work? Well, you get a blast of cortisol, because I mentioned your blood pressure goes up and that produces adrenaline and cortisol. So you get this thing in the morning called a cortisol activation response. Cortisol you will be familiar with as being the stress hormone. Stress is appropriate if it's happening at the right time in the right amount, and it serves a very important function in our lives. The function of stress is to bring our attention to something important. Okay, so cortisol creates a bias towards movement. So what we want is a strong blast of cortisol, and then as the day goes on, the cortisol levels drop away, our activity levels slow down. And then as the evening comes in and darkness appears, we produce melatonin. Melatonin is the sleep neurotransmitter. It's one of the key things that pushes you to sleep. So obviously controlling light is very important. So this cortisol activation response, we all get it. Now, what we want to try and do is we want to try and help this cortisol activation response, okay? If we get a strong signal, we elicit a strong response in the body, okay? So what that means is lots of bright light will give us a really strong signal, and we will be energized. So what that means for you people is getting outside in the morning, shortly after waking. I come downstairs, sort a few things out, grab my cup of coffee, and I walk outside. 5 or 10 minutes. You don't need to be looking into the sun, but that morning light signal tells your brain and your body now is the time for moving. So light is key. Our cortisol levels will fluctuate and are sensitive to not only light, but also things like exercise. So we know if we're exercising, we're in fight or flight, and stress. So we want to try and avoid stress. If we have a big stressful event later in the day, if you have an argument with your partner or something, you're not going to sleep that night. So obviously, and that's, for many reasons. So try and control that, okay? So that's one of the mechanisms just to get your head around. Now, the next obvious question with sleep is, well, how much should I be getting? The requirement for sleep varies through the lifespan. Okay, so babies apparently need 17 hours. My son didn't need that. Everyone's different. But children need a lot more. Teenagers require more sleep. If anyone has a teenager, I can hack your teenager for you in terms of, I know they don't want to go to bed and then they don't want to get up. And this is something called a phasal shift in sleep, a phasal shift, right? But I have a hack for you if you're interested. Most of us as adults require 7.5 hours. Why is it 7.5 hours? Well, 7 to 8 hours. When we sleep in blocks of 90 minutes. So 5 90-minute blocks equals 7.5 hours. So we should be getting 5 cycles a night. Now, there is variance. I mean, some people sleep 6 hours a night and that's fine. They operate quite well off that. I've worked with people who sleep as little as 3 and as much as 12. So there is variance. But for most of us, 7 to 8 hours. We get worse at sleeping as we age. We get worse at a lot of things as we age. It's also worth mentioning here, and it doesn't get spoken about half enough, is perimenopausal and menopausal women experience a great degree of difficulty with sleep because they experience a huge drop in progesterone and estrogen levels, and progesterone has a key role in relaxation and sleep. So, and they then experience vasomotor symptoms where their body temperature fluctuates. So that there are, again, things that we can do to help that as well in sleep practices. But I'm talking about the requirement now. And as I said, and sleep regularity is just as important as sleep quantity. Okay, it's very important to say that. So I mentioned the 90-minute cycles. I want to explain to you what happens during a 90-minute sleep cycle. So we kind of drift into sleep. It's quite complex, but it should be happening quite naturally for people. So we drift into stage 1 sleep. It's a very short stage, and many people don't realize they're in stage 1 sleep. And I hope none of you are in stage 1 sleep now. You fall deeper, then you relax. Breathing relaxes, heart rate slows down, blood pressure drops, and your core body temperature drops. And this drop in core body temperature causes a rise in melatonin levels, which pushes you into the deepest aspect of your sleep, stage 3. That's where a lot of physical repair occurs. Then you dream, your REM phase. Now, in the first 90-minute cycle, your REM phase is 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. And by the time your 5th cycle happens, the REM phase has extended to nearly an hour. So what's that telling us? It's telling us that as the night progresses, your sleep is getting lighter, okay, naturally. It's worth mentioning that light sleep and deep sleep are equally important, okay? Many people focus on how can I improve my deep, I want to get more deep sleep, your brain will actually look after that. Because if you miss out on deep sleep phases, if you get woken up, the next night, your brain will compensate by keeping you in deep sleep for longer. And the same with light sleep. Light sleep is where a lot of the cognitive repair happens. So again, hugely important. I mentioned over the course of the night, we don't call it sleep because it's not one continuous event. It's the 90-minute modulating cycles, okay? So over the course of the night, you've deep sleep and light sleep. And many people wake up. Does anyone wake up? Does anyone experience? I'm sure you do. Many people wake up in the middle of the night. And it's very normal to do that, okay? Why is that happening? There are 3 main drivers. The first one I mentioned already. So naturally, your sleep is getting lighter. The second reason is sleep pressure. So as we're awake, sleep pressure builds. And then when we're sleeping, sleep pressure drops. So the sleep pressure is dropping, so the brain will naturally gravitate towards waking up. And hormones that are produced, especially in the latter 2 or 3 cycles of sleep. So don't worry if you are waking up. I've got solutions for that as well, okay? Why is sleep so important? Muscle and tissue repair. Probably about 70 to 80% of tissue repair happens when we're sleeping. Now, I don't need to tell you as celiacs how important that is for you. So your body is in a dormant state. It's a great time for cellular repair to happen, okay? Different hormones, your endocrine system regulates at night. So your ghrelin levels, talk about food. Ghrelin is one of the hormones that tells you to eat. If you're sleep deprived, your ghrelin levels go up and you get cravings. And let's face it, people, you're not getting cravings for salads, are you? So we control hunger through, if we can actually lower ghrelin if we have a higher protein intake, especially at breakfast. But cortisol, estrogen, testosterone, all are regulated at night. Immune function, again, celiac autoimmune disease. So, people talk about boosted immunity. It's not about boosting immunity, as you know, because your immunity is boosted in a negative sense. So what we want to do is regulate the immune response. Okay, and this regulation is quite normal if we're getting normal sleep, if we're getting fairly decent sleep. We know that inflammatory cytokines are reduced, inflammation is reduced if we're getting good sleep. We know also that types of immune cells, when you fall asleep, your immune system wakes up. So different things like natural killer cells and mast cells are produced at night. So very important for all of us to look after our sleep. From a psychological standpoint, The psychological repair that happens in the lighter phases of sleep. Your brain flushes itself out at night while you sleep, something called glymphatic drainage. And you dream and you disassociate stress and all kinds of things. And we know that mood is impacted and things like that. So you see that in children, if they're miss out on sleep, that the next day they're very tired, they're cranky, they throw themselves on the ground crying because you gave them the wrong colored spoon or a broken biscuit. You can't do that as adults very often, at least. Emotional stability. So all of these things, we're much nicer people to be around if we have had a good night's sleep. How do we control sleep? What's in our control? Why do people have sleep difficulties? Well, it's for many different reasons. I categorize them. The physical components is one area that we can all control, all of these areas. The second area is this anxiety, stress, and worry. That can keep you awake all night, as we all well know. The third area is medical, a whole host of medical issues, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, medications can interfere with sleep, and many different things like that. And then the fourth area is circadian disruption. So the shift workers have a misalignment of their circadian rhythm. I'm going to focus on these physical components for you because this is important. Light is the master switch when it comes to sleep. The sun rises, light enters the optic nerve. It hits receptors in the back of our retina. That signals to a very specific part of our brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. You don't need to remember that. And this supercomputer in our brain then directs all of the systems in the body. So light really is the informer and the trigger. Okay. So we want strong inputs early in the day and midday. When evening comes in and night comes, we want to completely try and reduce and shut out the light, especially the white light and the blue light. But the white and the blue light are actually important early in the day. Get an eye mask. Excuse me. Get an eye mask. An eye mask is one of those things that will instantly improve your sleep quality. I will give you advice on different things that might take weeks, but an eye mask, the first night you wear it, will help. And being outside, getting outside for lots of light during the day will improve your sleep, because when you're getting lots of light, you're producing lots of serotonin, and that serotonin, in the absence of light, gets turned into melatonin. And I'll give you an example you'll be aware of. If you've ever been outside all day playing golf or at the beach or just outside, you sleep like a baby that night. And what did your mother tell you that was? My mother says, get out into that fresh air, it's good for you. The fresh air. Well, it's all the serotonin because you're getting loads of light. So, get outside, get active. Food. Oh, well, it's a big issue. So for all of us, we need to be minding our food. We need to leave at least 2 to 3 hours between our last meal and our sleep time. Why is that? I mentioned earlier the impact on what's happening in your gut. So, and I'm sure Sarah Keogh, fantastic, has spoken about this, but your gut bacteria have their own circadian rhythm. So what happens? Certain bacteria in your gut die away and others proliferate and repair and heal your digestive system while you're sleeping. That enables you to absorb and utilize vitamins much better. So food and linked inextricably. Habits with children are very good. We have a great routine for children. It's all about unwinding. They have some food, they have bath, playtime, pajamas, brush the teeth, bedtime story, and sleep. And I say to people, do you have that routine for yourself? They're like, they look at me as though I have two heads. We're all too busy running around, getting everything done. And then you go, Christ, look at the time. I have to go to bed. Jump into bed then and you go, what day is today? Did I take out the bins? I have to email her. She's a very busy day tomorrow. I can't sleep. What do you do then? Pick up the technology and start flicking through. The blue LED light in the phone is twice as powerful as natural sunlight at suppressing melatonin. So I know you're bringing your phones into the bedroom. It's how you're using them. You can go in brightness and display settings and turn down the blue and the white light. Heat, if it's too hot, you won't sleep. Temperature is the key factor when it comes to sleep as well. So keep your bedroom nice and cool. Your bedroom environment should be conducive to sleep, dark and cool and clutter-free. A lack of sleep. I suppose, guys, look, this slide is about being careful when driving, because if you've built up sleep debt, if you're missing out on sleep every night and you're fatigued mentally, your reaction time is compromised, and your ability to make good decisions is compromised. All of these things can influence. So just be mindful of that, please. Accumulation of sleep debt. So good sleep hygiene practices. Your bed and bedroom should be conducive to sleep. Of course, there are other things you can do in the bed, and I'm only an expert in sleep, but I want to be clear about things that you should be, it shouldn't be an entertainment area, or should be a dining area. So your bed boundaries is important in your bedroom. So you train your subconscious. Go to bed when you're tired. If you no point lying there for 4 hours, get up. Okay, cool down. But certainly, if you have a bedroom full of stuff, that creates that kind of background tension. So I want you to create a haven for sleep. Fresh sheets every week, nice smell, nice and organized. I mean, that's, you want to go to bed then. Diet, don't go to bed dehydrated or maybe over hungry too, because I'm sure that's kept you awake. Coffee, don't overdose on caffeine. As I've mentioned, it can be powerful, keeping you awake. Awareness of breathing or visualization. Does anyone wake up in the middle of the night? Anyone wake up in the middle of the night? Oh, sorry, I'm just checking the chat function there. Right. I'm sure you do wake up in the middle.
Lots of chat coming in, Tom. So yes, I can only imagine there's plenty of us waking up in the middle of the night, especially with worries and concerns.
Oh, yeah. You will, if your cortisol levels are high. This is where a magnesium supplement can help. Magnesium helps kind of divert cortisol as not being used. So I know you do wake up, and you know now why you do wake up, because your sleep cycles are getting lighter, because your hormones are being produced and the sleep pressure is dropping. That's fine. What do you do when you wake up? I know what you do. I ask people, well, what time do you wake up at? And they tell me 3 o'clock. I know 3 o'clock. I say, well, how do you know the time? What do you do? The hand goes out of the bed, you get the phone, you press the button, you get blinded by the light, and then you do the calculation. Oh, Jesus, I have to get up in 3 hours. And if you get stressed out at that point, your cortisol levels elevate, your brain is looking for danger, it's not conducive to sleep. So what we want to do is, when we wake up, go, oh, that's fine, that's my circadian rhythm doing its thing, no problem. Now, I'm just going to do a little breathing exercise, and you learn a body scan. The US military train other new recruits on how to fall asleep quickly. They've invested hundreds of millions into sleep. I have a link. I've done the body scan. They report a 98% success rate after 6 weeks. So any type of visualization where your mind isn't gravitating towards worry, that's a good thing. And you're breathing. You leverage your respiration to influence your physiology. And I'm going to talk about that. Light, obviously a dark room, eye mask. Temperature, I've spoken about. Routine is very important, and dealing with the anxiety, which I will do in a second. Treating insomnia, it needs to be diagnosed properly first. Medication, not hugely successful, being described as a blunt instrument by many people. So I think cueing control, that's the routine. Do all the sleep hygiene stuff first, then your next port to call is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. People get sleep anxiety, they start getting worried about sleep, and it becomes horrible. So a few simple CBTI techniques can really help. The light box in the wintertime, important. It can impact mood. We have very low vitamin D levels in Ireland, especially. Female health, again, really important for bone mineral density. So I'd recommend a vitamin D. If you do take vitamin D, take it in the morning. And if you do take a magnesium, take it an hour before sleep. COVID, again, back to COVID. And I think it was Andrea that came on there and said that we are waking up because we have this tension, and it's true, So in many ways, COVID has influenced our sleep. Unknown outcome. So we're unsure. We have been for over a year. What's going to happen next? This creates a kind of background tension, anticipatory anxiety. Anxiety is, as I said, anxiety is absolutely fine. We all get anxiety. If I didn't have any anxiety in my life, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be going, I should be okay. Grand. The only people who don't have anxiety are psychopaths. So anxiety is normal. right? So it's if it's inappropriately happening, if there's no threat, the unseen threat of the virus, we've never experienced anything like this before, and our subconscious is struggling. So if you're having very strange dreams, don't worry, very normal. Something called pandemic dreaming. There's about 7 studies going on globally now looking at pandemic dreaming. We have lacked the input. We've lacked all the interactions and all the inputs. Now we're at home in front of our computers with the same input every day. So in that sense, your subconscious is struggling to put it into pictures. So it reaches for some symbols to represent all of these things. So don't worry about that. The routine, or your routine is like the framework in which your circadian rhythm is hung off. So that's been taken away from us. The support systems, the interaction, the friends, all of that's been taken away. So it's become a lot tougher to sleep. So I really get that. And as I said, at night, it's a very natural time to worry. Part of the reason we are successful as a species is our ability to look into the future and predict danger. The same area of your brain that's in charge of worry is also in charge of planning, problem solving, the prefrontal cortex. So if you're working, you're very busy, and then you just stop that, guess what your brain is going to do? It's going to gravitate towards worry. So you need to give your brain some chewing gum, which is some little activity to help. Now, a big question for people. I just can't sleep. I'm too wound up. My mind is just racing. How do I stop it? Well, excuse me. We have the untrained mind. Our mind is like a child, literally just jumping and hopping around, and we will go from subject to subject and get distracted very easily, and we're wound up. Now, if we are thinking about work and planning, this is part of sort of looking into the future, and that's actually tied up in the dopaminergic system, your dopamine reward system. If people are stressed out, if people have anxiety, then they're in the stress response. You'll be familiar with the stress response. You have what have you? Cortisol, adrenaline. Okay, so that's your sympathetic nervous system looking for danger. Okay, this stress response. Did you know that you have a calm response as well? We have an equal and opposite calm response. Stress response, calm response. Not many people know this, and that's controlled by your parasympathetic nervous system. So I'm going to teach you the stress or the calm response. Okay. So the calm response is a double inhale through the nose and a long, slow exhale where you focus your attention on the exhale. So it looks a bit like this. Okay. That's the calm response. You do it yourself reflexively. You do it when you're tired, you do it when you're sleeping, and you also do it when you've had a good cry. For the children and the adults out there, when you cry and you go, that's your physiology calming you down. It's the fastest scientific method to reduce stress. Okay, it's based on your physiology. When you exhale slowly, your diaphragm pushes up into your chest cavity, and that compresses your thoracic cavity. It compresses your heart, and the blood flow is compressed, which then signals to your brain to slow down your heart rate and drop your blood pressure. So it's based on physiology. It's not based on psychology, which means that it works every time for everyone. Isn't that great news? I don't get nervous when I speak in front of people. I get nervous if I have to go on the radio, and I had 4 radio interviews in the last couple of days talking about celiac society, but I'm fine now. But I'm here on the radio. I had a bad experience, I think, the first time I went on, and I a few weeks ago I was on Today FM, and I sat there 2 minutes before my phone listening and hearing my name come up, and then I got the stress response, and I watched my own body do the stress response, and I thought, right, let's do the calm response now, and here I was doing this. It worked perfectly, absolutely perfectly. So it's a real-time tool for people, and that's your very short-term real-time tool for dealing with stress. Okay, your medium-term tools are non-sleep deep rest protocol. Okay, which are breathing exercises. Sorry, just come back to this for a second. If anyone's feeling their energy is very low, and you have an important meeting coming up or you have something coming up, you could do the opposite. You can do lots of deep inhales, and that's leveraging your respiration to increase. So you're doing this. You see athletes doing it. So actually you can go up or down. But the question, people, for your sleep is, where am I on this arousal continuum? I need to be in a calm, relaxed state, and that will help with sleep. Okay, so if you do wake up, if you have the wake episodes, you should be learning a non-sleep deep rest protocol, a breathing exercise, a meditation. And again, they're all looking at breathing and cognitive. So the body scan, very effective meditation. It could be music for some people. It could be relaxing sounds. There's lots of good apps out there. You know, there's a host of different things we can use. Build it into your ritual. Build it into your relaxing ritual. Don't reach for the phone. Okay. People experience sleep difficulties for many reasons. I think what I'll do is I'll leave these questions towards the end because we're tight enough on time. I suppose people come to me with sleep issues, and I find out they don't really have sleep issues. They have lifestyle choice issues because every single thing you do during the day will inform your sleep at night. So you put some thought into that. Plan your sleep times. Nap if you need to. Check in with yourself. Where am I in the stress scale? Okay, really important. And in terms of stress, and in terms of lying in bed at night, the noise of the day quietens down. We gravitate towards worry, and then we can be lying there 2 hours later. The question is, like, what do we worry about? We tend to worry about things outside of our control. Maybe we can do something about it, and I give you an action plan right at the end. But we can influence maybe certain things. Maybe we don't want to take action, or we start thinking about the outcomes. People think, well, if I do that, this will happen. We're never in charge of the outcomes. We're only in charge of taking the right action. Okay, so think about that as well. Having a notepad and pen by the bed is very useful, because if you have that racing mind, or if you have the worries, writing them down is a great exercise. I want you to remember, you can train yourself to sleep. Many of the blocks and barriers come from, I can't sleep. I can't do that. Okay, first thing, so you can train yourself to sleep. Watch the electronics, control, because these devices stimulate the mind and they push you up on that arousal continuum, because the app companies operate of something called the dopamine error reward. So they're stimulating, they're addictive. It's like gambling operates of the same principle. You get excited, you pull the lever. So when you get that excitement that you might win, that's dopamine, and then you pull the lever, and then sometimes you win and you get a second hit of dopamine. If you don't win, you pull the lever again, and that's the phone. The phone operates the same way, according to Harvard. So manage, it's not just the light in the phones, it's what you're doing on them. Control the bedroom environment, the sensory, so your eyes, your eye mask, your earplugs, all that kind of stuff. The psychological input, write it down, train the mind. Easy to say, much harder to do. Routine is crucial as well. I've got two other areas I want to speak about in relation to sleep. I know you've had a talk this week on nutrition, so I'm going to be very brief on this. Good quality food in the right amount at the right time. We have to move away from, well, that's good and that's bad kind of thinking when it comes to food. Generally, we want to eat a broad selection of food that's kind of changing and seasonal. That would be ideal. I understand that you have very particular challenges around gluten and carbohydrates and things like that. So you have your own things to really watch out for. But in terms of nutrient density, that's very important. And when you're eating, so leaving that time between your bedtime and your food. And also, I know that in relation to nutrition and sleep, I may have said some of this again just to cover it off. Your gut bacteria have their own circadian rhythm. The vast majority of repair that's done within the digestive lining is done at night. Inflammation is reduced at night. A lack of sleep will increase levels of stress. And also, you're feeling terrible the next day. What are you going to do? You're going to reach for foods that you shouldn't. You're going to reach for those poor quality foods. If you don't produce enough melatonin, that has a risk of increasing the acid reflux, the GERD as well. So that's something to think about for yourself. Insulin secretion and plasma. Tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid found in proteins and dairy and things like sweet potato and in some carbohydrates that you can or can't have, but tryptophan and insulin, if they work together, this increases serotonin, and serotonin gives us that happy feeling of being in the now. You know, you get increased serotonin from exercise, from light, from things like yoga. I believe you're doing yoga tomorrow. Increases serotonin. Isn't that fantastic? So all these contribute to sleep. So I know you have particular challenges around these things, so it's important to kind of address them. Okay, and the other area I want to talk about is work-life balance quickly, because if you're not in control of your work-life balance, then your sleep is going to be interrupted. Okay, so for all of us in general, but especially if you're working from home, get up in the morning, set a priority list. That gives you control. Easy, you know, pick easy enough things to do, but do the one thing that you should do that's bugging you, that you have to do all day. Once you do that, you get an amazing sense of achievement, and that'll give you a great blast of dopamine, which feels great, and you're moving forward in life. Set limits on your connectivity. It's so easy now with the phones and everything, and technology is really heavily influencing our stress levels, our overstimulation. Okay, guard your downtime. Take regular breaks throughout the day. Dress for work if you do work. If you don't, just dress appropriately, I suppose. Get up and it sets the tone. Manage the distractions, whether that be the television, the kids, or the social media. Have a dedicated work environment and mark the end of your day. We had the framework before of everything being open, and we had distinctive time periods. So you need to sort of do that with yourself. In general terms, if people are working, or you're minding children at home, which is twice as hard, your work-life balance and managing that disconnect, even if whatever the demands, we all have these demands on us. If you have a lot of demand on your plate, you need to disconnect from those demands, and that means finding something that gives you energy back that you enjoy doing. So really important. Make new time habits. Manage overcommitment, and manage the chimp. What's the chimp? The chimp is this, the negative voice in the head. I'm going to talk about the chimp now in a second. So the chimp is kind of, when everything is going okay, the chimp is quiet. And then when you start to miss things and not achieve things or fail at things, that's when the chimp gets really active. So failure is something that I always talk about in every presentation I do, because in life we will fail, no doubt. I've spoken about my success, and I've spoken at all these companies, and I've worked with all these high-level athletes and everything. I haven't told you about my failures, and I could do the full hour on my failures, which are very dramatic. I'll tell you one. When I started my business 10 years ago, I'm from Mayo. No comments about Mayo and failure, please. I wanted to build my name, and I wanted to earn money, obviously, and I done a workshop in my hometown. People said, Tom, do this workshop, it'll be full. I said, brilliant. So I advertised in the local newspaper. I told all of my friends, come to my talk. It's going to be great. And the evening came for my talk. I went to the community centre, and the guy said, Tom, how many chairs will I put out for your talk? And I said, put out 50 chairs. So he put out 50 chairs. And there I stood waiting for the crowds to come. And how many people came to my talk? 2 people came, 10 minutes late. And it felt like a horrible failure. And the chimp that night was going mad. And I can laugh back now. It's part of my success story now, because 3 years later I was working with one of the biggest names on the planet. I was working with some of the Irish rugby team. The Irish Indo were running full page stories on the work I was doing. And since that, I've had a lot of success. I've also had a lot of failure. So look, what I'm saying to you is my failure then was no indication of my future success. And I learned something else fascinating about failure as well this year, that in order for the brain to learn something new, this is called neuroplasticity, where we learn something new, and that's hardwired when we sleep. But in order for that mechanism to happen, well, the trigger for that to happen is what? It's repeated failure. We must fail several times, and then the brain learns. Isn't that just such a relief for all of us, that in order to learn, we have to fail? So good news. So guys, I want to finish today's talk with a little action plan for you. Take action, because if you're ever in bed at night trying to think your way out of your problems and into a better life, you know you can't. You have to live your way into better thinking, and that involves taking action. So get outside, get moving, get exercising, watch your nutrition. I know you do already. You're probably excellent on this. So keep up the good work. Manage your sleep in terms of looking after, prioritizing it in 90-minute cycles. Think about that, and manage your time off as well. Look after yourself, even though I say that sleep is the ultimate act of self-care. Control, focus on what you can control instead of worrying about what you can't. Get a diary, have a notepad and pen by the bed, and sort out your bedroom. As my mother said to me. Thoughts, reframe your thought process. What's the narrative? I can't do that. I'm no good at that. What's the narrative? Change the narrative. So I want to thank Andrea and Jennifer and Jill and everyone in Celiac Ireland for asking me to talk today. If anybody wants to find out more information, or if anyone has any questions for me, get in touch. My Instagram, tomcoleman.ie, or you can even email me at tomosjcoleman. Again, thank you very much. Have a lovely day, and more importantly, have a lovely night's sleep tonight.
Tom, that was absolutely fantastic. Now we have lots of questions. Is it okay if I read some?
Yes, please do.
Brilliant. Neve here is wondering, do you get a revitalized sleep with sleeping tablets?
No, is the short answer to that. You get a worse sleep with sleeping tablets, because sleeping tablets interfere with your physiology and your nervous system, and they have and this is why, I mean, I'll give you an example now. So I worked with a lot of the rugby guys internationally, and back a couple of decades ago, they were throwing out sleeping tablets to guys, and then until they realized they had a huge impact on performance the next day. So it actually interferes with good quality sleep. So I would talk to your GP about alternative routes. And in research, we know that placebos have had the same effect as sleeping tablets. So I would be an advocate for really pursuing every avenue first, you know, and trying to look after them from that end.
Okie dokie. A lady, got somebody here, 8-year-old son with celiac disease, takes hours to fall asleep. The pediatrician has described melatonin.
Yeah.
Don't like giving it to the child. What's your view on melatonin for children?
Well, melatonin delays puberty, and that might be the concern. That giving melatonin, one of the, because usually, like children and babies, they produce lots of melatonin. That's why they can just sleep, and that's why babies kind of randomly sleep, and they don't have cyclical melatonin production. But melatonin will delay puberty. That might be the concern. Actually, melatonin occurs in certain foods. Pistachio nuts have a clinical dose of melatonin. What's the other foods that have? It'll come to me in a second. Oh,
don't worry.
Yeah.
What about adults and melatonin, out of interest?
Well, melatonin will only help sleep onset. It won't help sleep maintenance. Okay. So I've actually tried it myself. You have to get it prescribed in Ireland, but you can buy it over the counter in Spain and the US. And I lived in Spain for a time, and I just tried it to see, and yeah, it did. I mean, it did help.
Okay.
But
what about a nap?
Yes.
A 10-minute nap in the day, is it going to impact your sleep then at night time? Like a 10-minute, a good napper.
Yeah, it depends. Obviously, each of us are different, and that's down again to the melatonin, because if we easily produce lots of melatonin in the pineal gland in the brain, then we should have no problem with sleep onset. So some people, they will find, well, if I have a 10-minute nap, it'll push my sleep back 2 hours, and we don't want that. Whereas other people are like, well, every day I come home and I have a little nap, and and that's fine. Now, generally, I'd advocate for the nap. Now, remembering the 90-minute cycle, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Once we go over that threshold, we're going into the deeper aspects of sleep. And if you've ever had a nap for an hour, oh God, you wake up and you feel terrible. Yeah.
Kindles. What's your view on a Kindle?
They don't operate off light, so the Kindles are absolutely fine. No problem with the Kindles.
Yeah. And somebody else, Mary, has asked here, reading before bed.
Yeah, reading good.
Yeah, magical, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant.
Now, we have a question here about snoring. Is there anything, there's a poor lady here with grounds for divorce for her poor husband or partner snoring.
Oh my goodness! Well, my my heart goes out. My advice on snoring: get a really good set of earplugs if you can. Flare Audio do like titanium earplugs, which are soft and they're really good at. You just need enough that reduction for enough to stop. To stop, it won't completely eliminate the sound. Otherwise, you're talking about a bedroom divorce before you get.
Oh, we wouldn't want to suggest that. I had two ladies asking about sleep in the menopause, and I can hold my hand up with that as well. I think you've really helped that, and just recognizing the fact that it is very difficult.
Huge.
For women.
Huge issue. I mean, I think apart from the HRT route, I think phytoestrogens. I don't know if Sarah might have mentioned this, but foods like soy foods are high in phytoestrogens, and what they do is they bind to estrogen receptors. They're not the same as estrogen. They will bind to the receptor, so you get the benefit without getting the increased estrogen, and that will help with that can help as well. And obviously avoiding spicy foods and alcohol and the clothing and all that kind of stuff. And indeed, some people have found that magnesium helps. L-theanine and ashwagandha are two other supplements that people have found useful.
Wonderful. Julie is worried about her no more breakfast in bed. Tom.
Oh, look, Julie, don't you worry about that. I tell you, if you're getting breakfast in bed, don't stop that for one second.
No, totally.
Keep it coming. No problem with that.
Maria here is wondering about her 17-year-old daughter. How can she support her getting a better sleep? Now, you did answer a lot of that, and obviously this video is going to be, you can view it for the next couple of weeks on the website. So I think that you've given us plenty of tips, but teenagers.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to biohack your teenager, I mean, someone said the trouble is getting them to sleep and getting them up. So what you do is you just go into the bedroom early in the morning and make sure you're wearing a pair of runners, because you might have to run, and flick the light on and off. And this light flashing signal, even if they only get it for a couple of seconds, will trick their brain into the cortisol activation response, and it will set a timer for melatonin earlier.
Yeah, she wants to get her to sleep better. So I would have thought all those sleep hygienes, phone out of the room, because
all the sleep hygiene stuff. Yeah, all the sleep hygiene stuff.
Yeah. In fact, my fella, he's 16. I can't keep him out of the bed. All he wants, he's just growing so much.
Oh, the growth. Yeah, well, that's and probably eating you out house and home as well.
All of the above. Just a couple of more. We're just going to finish up now in a minute or two. Thanks for everybody's really enjoyed the talk, Tom. Thank you so much. But let me think. Could you use meditation apps on your phone?
Yeah, super. So, like, I know we all bring our phones into the room, and it's how you're using it. So I think there's loads of really good meditation apps out there that you can have, and again, that's part of your lovely unwinding routine. Really good. So I'm a big fan of those. Yeah, absolutely.
Getting back to sleep.
You
fall asleep, you wake.
Yeah.
But I think those breathing techniques are really good. I often use
the body scan. Like, the body scan is where you work from your toes to your head, and you're just feeling your toes, squeezing, release the tension, and you work your way through your body until you get to your face, and you go all the way, your eyes, your ears, your neck, your shoulders, your head, your scalp, and you just do this technique and see how you feel. And I mean, they work exceptionally well. And once it's building the confidence to know that when I do wake up, I can put myself back to sleep again, and that will really help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Tom, thank you so much. And before we let everybody go, I just wanted to let Anna O'Shea and Rosemary Walsh know that get in touch with Jennifer at Jennifer Morrow at celiac.ie. You have won the Promise Gluten-Free hamper, so well done to you both. Tom, amazing, and thank you for your
wonderful
radio interviews. We've really appreciated, and we've really appreciated your time today. And thank you all. We had 72 on our Zoom call today, so amazing. And thank you all for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye-bye.